Okay, hello everyone. Just trying to do some screen recording here. This is like our first little test, quote unquote, lesson that we'll be doing over the next little bit. Based on from what I've heard from everyone, it sounds like we all have access to a device at home, which is fantastic. And I've had a few of you reach out to me with respect to this final project. Now, I want to be clear. I know it says right here that we have this is an old project. It says due date was before Christmas. That was last semester, but I just want everyone to be clear that this project is going to be very, very different than years past. And when I say very different, I mean, who knows what extent it will get to? Who knows if it'll be a full project? Who knows if we even do the project? However, I know that a lot of you have reached out and wanted to get started on this, and I also know that um, it's not a terrible thing to do with respect to Excel because Excel is used kind of all over the world. So even if you get started on stuff right now, don't feel or don't get upset later on finding out that there is no project, but I know that a lot of you have a lot of time right now. So I'm just going to essentially kind of talk about what the point of the project is using everything down here, but as well as we are going to kind of show you how to use some of these websites down here and set up our Excel. So once again, the point of this project is to analyze two different variables. So it says here, two quantitative variables that can be graphed in a scatter plot. Remember that quantitative essentially means it can be measured using numbers. So the project that we did earlier, whether you were the first one doing NHL, I think that's what it was, and the second one was MLB, those are the two variables that we analyzed. So the number of strikeouts and the number of wins. Those are both quantitative because they can be measured using numbers. Now, when we say here real world data at least 50, that essentially says you need to have 50 countries. So in that project assignment, if you will, we had 30 NHL teams. The teams were the data points. The variables were number of wins and number of strikeouts. So when you pick your variables and all that sort of stuff, you need to find two variables, as well as they need to have at least 50. And these 50 data points need to be within both. So I'm going to do a quick little example using gapminder and nationmaster. Those are the ones that best work for analyzing countries in general. If you're interested in sports or any other project style, if you will, there are other websites down there, right over here. So what we're going to do right now is I'm just going to quickly walk you through what's going to happen using these sites. So nationmaster, if you choose here, you'll essentially look around and you'll see based on different categories, you can kind of think about what you want to analyze. Now, I'll be honest with you, nationmaster has little fallen behind compared to gapminder lately, but you might be able to find some information on this site as opposed to the gapminder one over here. But you can use this. Let's pretend I were to just want to analyze footwear of whatever. You can see here that if I were to take a look at the footwear production sold, one thing I would notice is there's only 24 countries compared here. So if that's the case, that means that this variable, if I were to pick it, isn't going to be too good because I need at least 50. So rule of thumb is you want to try and find close to at least 50. If it's 45, 40, it's not the end of the world, but the more the better. So that's essentially how you can use nationmaster. You can also do up here if you wanted to search, say, the GDP of a country, something like that. You can see here is the contribution of GDP to construction or manufacturing. So they have a lot of data here. Just pay attention to what the description is of everything too, because that is a big part of your project. But I'm going to head over here to gapminder and show you how to use it. So what I'm going to do right now is I've already kind of set this up, but I'm trying to find out, hey, does the body mass index affect the life expectancy? Meaning, I know some people would argue that BMI is not the best way to measure health, but if you have a better BMI or if you are healthier, do you live longer? So that's my quote unquote project that I've set up here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to go to gapminder, and I'm going to go to data right at the very top here. And I've already located mine, but you can pick here from searching, or you can use the topics down here. So my two variables are shown here. One is under health, life expectancy, and I'm going to do male just because the other one that I have here at, oh geez, I lost it. Let's go BMI. There. it's men or women, so I already know I have to pick one or the other. So I'm just going to pick men because it's the first one that showed up. So here we have a ton of countries, a ton. You can't see it below, but it keeps going. And the cool thing is it goes from 1980 till 2008. So it's maybe a little dated, but no fear, don't worry about that. So what I'm going to do is right over here, I'm going to click on XLSC. That essentially means download it as a Excel file. Now, I understand that some of you might not have Excel, so it might show up under Google or OneDrive. That's something that hopefully you can let me know how that's going, if somebody doesn't mind doing that, because I'm not sure how that would work, but keep me in the loop. So I'm going to click on this, and I just actually had a side idea. If this doesn't work, if you can't download it, you are able to just copy. I should be able to. Well, maybe not. TBD. I'll need to figure that out. I thought I'd be able to click and drag this. But anywho, when I click on that, here's all my data. It's right here on an Excel file, and it appears that I have 190 countries. That's wicked. So BMI, I have my information there. And if I go back to gapminder, I will go and find my other variable. So my other variable I already indicated was, I believe, this was BMI. Okay, so this was all the BMI. I can see it in the title up here and down here as well on my sheet. So I'm going to find now my life expectancy. That is the second variable I want. So life expectancy of males at birth. And the funny thing is this here says with projections as well. So if I click on this, it'll show everything loading, and it predicts what we are going to live to be in 2099. So Canada, they predict that we're going to live to be 91. So enjoy your time. You're going to live a long time. So same thing I'm going to download as an Excel. So I have both of my variables now on two different files, life expectancy and body mass index. Now, body mass index only goes to 2008. The life expectancy goes from 1950 all the way to 2099. So since there's so many different years, I really only want the 2008. So I'm going to go and delete all the information I don't need. That's just because these variables called for those two values, and only those 2 years would work. Now you could do 1950 if you want for both, doesn't matter, but I'm just going to do the more recent of the two. So I've deleted them. So right now I have my life expectancy of all countries in 2008. So I'm going to go up here and just change that to life expectancy of males in 2008. Because if I get rid of that, I'm not going to see it. So I'm going to quickly wrap that text so that it doesn't go too far. There's the life expectancy. And I'm going to go over here to the BMI. 2008 is the year I want. So let's go over to and delete everything else that we do not want. So after doing all that, this is my BMI. I now have my two variables, variable 1 and variable 2. Now the thing is, you'll see that this variable has 184 countries because I already had column 1 wasn't used. So 184 countries for life expectancy. If I put that right beside my BMI countries, you'll notice that this one has 5 more countries than this variable. In order for this project to work, you need to be picking single data points. So for instance, Afghanistan as a data point would have this BMI and that life expectancy. Argentina would have this, but Argentina is actually up here. So what I would suggest, they're already sorted in alphabetical order. The best thing you can do is just kind of scroll through and see, okay, Andorra is present in BMI, but it is not present in life expectancy. So I'm just going to delete that. Delete that, and I want to shift all of my cells up. And what that does is it will line up Angola with Angola here. Perfect. And essentially what's going to happen is I'm just going to keep going down. I've already researched which of these countries they are, but you can scroll down, and what I like to do is just go here and say, oh, Colombia, that's still there. That means I'm good. Okay, here they don't match up, so that means there's something up here that I need to delete, and it happens to be Dominica. So I'll delete that one as well. And I know also the Marshall Islands need to go. just from looking at it before. Nauru and Palau. Sorry, I'm not a geography teacher, but I should know this. This one has to go. And this one has to go. So once I'm done, if I've established them all, every country should be sort of matched up like this. Samoa. And if I go down to the bottom, there's Zimbabwe, perfectly set up. So what I've done now is I've actually been able to set up my variables. These are my variables. Completely, I have my entire data set. I happen to have then 184 countries that I will be analyzing in my project. Now, another part of the project, people are saying, well, what happens if it's not correlated? I've already done a scatter plot of these two variables. I did that here. I've just made the screen a little bit bigger. But one thing I noticed, when I did my scatter plot, this is a later part of the project, but I just want people to be aware right away. You do not get assessed on how well it is correlated. These two variables happen to work out really nicely, which is great. I'm going to adjust the bounds so that I start at 15. Don't have to worry about all this information there. I'll adjust this to start at 40. Now, obviously, when you make this, you'll have titles, you'll have your access titles, everything like that. But notice how when I go to set up my trend line, there it is. I'll set up my R² value. It's not great, but it's pretty decent. And I think just from looking at the data points, we can also see that it makes sense. So it has a relatively moderate positive correlation. Because if I were to take the R² and square root it, it would give us a pretty good number. And I think that makes sense. As you look at the variables, it appears that as your body mass index, this variable, as it increases, as does your life expectancy. So that's just kind of to get you started for the project. I really hope this all recorded because it took a few minutes, but hope that gets you started with everything going on. All right, let's see how we can stop this.